Good afternoon. My name is Rick Sanford. I'm the president and founder of SpaceGroundAmalgam, and I'm here today to talk to you about inflatable and rigidized antennas for satellites. Applications like high-definition television, mobile television, fast internet, and mobile computing are driving insatiable demand for bandwidth. In satellites, size does matter. Big antennas equal the ability to support many customers and drive large amounts of revenue. Small structures for launch and low mass drive low cost and efficiency. So it works against both ends. And advances in material and chemical sciences, along with advances in shared memory polymers and nanomaterials, are enabling a new way for inflatable materials to support requirements in the market today. Our bottom line up front ask, beyond being able to scale to any frequency and antenna requirement, is for $3.5 million to fund development of 2 antennas. By the way, with the sale of 2 antennas, we are profitable and returning about 114% to our investors. Our team is comprised of leaders in the marketplace that have successfully transitioned terrestrial technologies for use in space. We have expertise that spans mechanical structures for satellites, subsystem design, and over a half-dozen nanosatellite developments over the past 5 years. Our go-to-market partner is Lagarde. They're an early pioneer and current innovator in the inflatable business, and they have agreed to explore the research and development phase as well as go-to-market with us. And importantly, with our partnership with NanoRex and their Space Act agreement, we have the ability to test our systems aboard the International Space Station post-launch. According to the 2011 space report produced by the Space Foundation, high-definition television and mobile next-generation applications are driving about a 3-fold increase in bandwidth requirements from data communication satellites. 3D television, which is coming, demands over 6 times the bandwidth required for links to close. Advanced materials, nanomaterials, and polymers, as well as new techniques to optimize post-rigidization, which is the process of inflating the antenna chemically or with UV rays, rigidizing the structure so it becomes permanent upon launch, are enabling us to look at this technology along with software optimization post-deployment. This helps our partners in the satellite operators and developers reduce deployment risks for complex mechanisms associated with big antennas. Comparing the rigid, the old inflatable, and the new inflatable, first off, the price points fit within the current budget. The costs, however, drop by roughly 1/2, which increases margin and gives us greater flexibility on the development side. I want to talk about risk. This team has success in addressing risks of new technology in the conservative satellite marketplace. For example, being able to fly 12 million lines of software code in space versus 200,000, which was considered the industry norm, as well as success developing new processes for the way we go to market with new technology. And speaking of the market, our initial market is about $1 billion per year. And as I said to begin with, selling 2 units by 2016 puts us in a cash flow positive position with 114% ROI. We're going to establish beachhead accounts with known operators and manufacturers in the communications world because that's the market that we know. However, that market, with that approach and this opportunity, only addresses about roughly 1/3 of the addressable market. The broadcast market, including the 3D television, is a 6 times demand increase. There's a market for additional components and new markets, in particular for this group of organizations looking at deep space communications. Imagine being able to land a vehicle on the moon, let the dust settle, inflate and rigidize a large reflector. Gigabit capacity from the moon and beyond are a reality with this technology. The chart on the right is a notional growth chart over the next 10 years, showing a very conservative scale opportunity tied with this technology. Thank you, and I'll take questions.
A couple of questions. When I was reading the business plan, one of the things that I was a little confused by, I guess, was it seemed like you were buying an awful lot of your technology and wasn't sure what you were actually creating.
Right. So great question. And the point in this market, the challenge is blending sort of the old tried and true market with the new market and new opportunity. And so leveraging existing technology and capabilities to the extent possible is important. The development here has to do with the techniques around rigidization, the techniques around optimizing post-rigidization for very high precision demands associated with Ka-band 30 gigahertz types frequencies. The precision with inflatable technology to date has not allowed us to be able to support those very high bandwidth, or sorry, high precision requirements. So the innovation and the development and the patent discussion talks around that technique to be able to do that for large reflectors.
Okay. And can you do it with solar arrays as well as antennas?
Yes, ma'am. So the research is required there. How we manage heat becomes an issue with solar arrays, but absolutely inflatable structures, booms, arrays, and antenna structures. There are some patents, by the way, that Honeywell owns right now around some of those in particular. But yes, solar arrays and any structures that you look at today, there is potential to look at using rigid components that are inflatable. White?
Rick, huge market opportunity, obviously. I think, as you just stated, the key risk seems to be the ability to tune it, the surface of the reflector, to high precision after it's been rigidized. Can you give us a little more comfort on why you think that's a risk you're going to be able to overcome and
Yes. So without being too specific, obviously, there are techniques and tools that are understood in the industry for being able to compensate in software for surface deviations and being able post-rigidization to analyze that and build some software that compensates. Very high level.
Yeah, related question, Rick. I can appreciate that, like Lagarde could make a perfect reflector, you know, at least within the specs you need. But when you talk about putting that huge reflector on the end of booms or struts or supports or whatever it is that gets it out there, when you talk about booms in your market here, is that the kind of boom you're talking about to hold that reflector out there, or would you always have that reflector on the end of composite tubes or something? Because those booms also need to be as precise as the reflector, otherwise you're off.
That's correct. And so it's important to note that in the plan and with the plan that I've articulated today, the structure, the support, how those pieces play together, the answer is all of the above and perhaps both. It will depend on the bus that we're flying on, the size of the bus, the structure that's there, the availability to support the interface. I spoke about new process, and this is in particular what I'm talking about. So I don't have the specific answer for you, but that's part of the R&D that needs to go on over the next 3 years for this development. Yes, sir.
I had a quick question about kind of a materials related
Yes.
issue. Because you're using a quite different material technology that's involved in it, how is the lifetime of that compared to the satellite lifetimes with the existing technology that's there? Is it comparable?
It's comparable.
Does it have a longer life cycle, shorter life cycle, given the space environment?
It's comparable, and in fact, it's important to note that we're focusing on the geosynchronous environment, which is much less harsh.
Right.
Post-rigidization, the technologies and the materials that we're using would fit well within the 12-year design life cycle of the average geostationary spacecraft.
But satellite extension is always a very attractive option
correct.
that's out there, and there's a lot of folks working on that, and so
That's
you would
correct.
expect these materials to still extend beyand that, or
So that's
that might put an end to satellite extension capability.
That's beyond my ability to answer at this point in time. I can absolutely find the answer for you, but I don't know the right now.
Lots of people, once they get them out there and working, like to keep them. So.
Absolutely right. But you know, the question is there enough margin to go 15 years or longer? Can absolutely provide that answer for you.
Quick question about your test plan that
Yes.
you described with nanoracks.
Yes.
On the one hand, you're trying to validate a very large antenna that's maybe bigger than anything that has been up there recently.
Correct.
But nanoracks is focused on small
Yes.
stuff. So do you know how big you could get nanoracks to support a demo? You know, like how big of a demo? And is it
So-
scalable to what you really need?
So it's a
Analysis-wise.
excellent question, Rex. So the test environment on the International Space Station is the external platform program, which comes online in 2014. And the specifics of the mechanics, first off, the upmass and downmass is via the Space Act agreement on any of the launchers that are there. The infrastructure is aboard the space station to support our on-orbit testing. The question of how big of a reflector will we be able to deploy, it probably won't be 10 meters. And we're still in early stage conversation about that. What we want to test is specifically our ability to rigidize, map the surface, and do some performance analysis based on that, even on a small scale, to burn down risk. We're in the hostile environment in LEO. Well, it's not really hostile at that point, but more rigorous than what we see in GEO. And so we're taking a phased approach on the test side. And again, it's the reason the ask is to build the test unit and then 2 production units post that. The other question that you may be thinking about, I just want to add this, is what does the customer want? And we do have letters of interest from 2 satellite manufacturers right now, and we need to be in conversation with them about what their specific requirements are, so then we can design what our first product really needs to do.